The number one mistake new entrepreneurs make is raising money too early, too late, or not at all. We're going to be talking about raising money, entrepreneurism on this conversation. You got to stay tuned. David Bleznak is a fellow brother from Michigan, one of the coolest dudes I've ever been able to meet and build a friendship and relationship with. He's an expert in many things, building businesses, investing. He's a board member. He's an advisor. Tune into this conversation on the Wavelength podcast. Excited to welcome David into the studio. Let's dive in. Yo, David, we're here, finally.
We made it.
We made it. Everybody, welcome to the Wavelength podcast. Excited to have our guest, David Bleznak, on the show at this exciting launch of this new season, this new episode, this new podcast. And so David has come into my life in a very unique way, and he's actually a board member of one of the companies that we started, Hypermarket. He's an investor of it, and I've just become really close as a friend. And it's something amazing about his story. So many things to learn from you, bro. And excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think that the story of kind of how you got here today and what you're doing, I'd love for you to share what you've been up to lately.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, first I want to say, Daniel, thank you for having me on the show. You always are a awesome hype man to all of your best friends. So I know as long as I need somewhere to go to get some good energy, it's always to come and sit with you and have a good talk. So I started my career out of going to school at the University of Michigan into the real estate world. I was doing commercial leasing for retail property for a development company in Chicago. And then quickly, that was about 2013, moved back with my family in Detroit area.
Oh, yeah.
And started buying our REO, property that had gone back to the bank from the 2008 crisis. We bought that property and turned it around and refinanced or sold it. And then 2016, I saw the Ethereum ICO. I didn't participate myself, but having understood how people were participating in that and what the technology was planning on disrupting, and it's amazing to see what it's come about. And
Ethereum is a cryptocurrency. ICO is initial coin offering. This is like early crypto
Correct.
days.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, the Ethereum is the second largest blockchain.
So what was the cost back then?
When I learned about it, it was in the single dollars. I didn't buy it.
And now it hit almost $4,000
to $4,000 each.
Crazy.
It is wild. The price action is wild. So that's what I was just, in terms of my story, I saw the price action. This thing went from single dollars to $100. I didn't even own it, but I was watching some friends participate in that.
Yep.
And understanding that price action in and of itself is going to draw a lot of attention. And why and what's drawing, all the attention to the space. I started to understand the technology and what Ethereum was really doing. And Ethereum itself has an aim to be this settlement layer for all assets globally. And so I studied Vitalik's blog posts about what that was going to be, the use cases for Ethereum that were most likely to persist.
And you were a real estate person at that point.
Yeah.
So was that out of the scope of your brain of like making that jump and learning about this stuff?
So I always growing up was into digital games, gaming at Roller Coaster Tycoon till the long, into the long hours of the night as a young kid. I did a lot of robotics in my middle school years. In and through high school, I did, programming. So it's not stuff that was extremely foreign to me. Bitcoin I learned about in 2013, and understanding that it was an asset that you could send around the world and it not be seizable by whether it's a private creditor or a government.
True ownership
of
currency,
self-sovereignty. Yeah. Digital cash.
Deflationary, not inflationary.
That part took a little bit longer to wrap my head around, but I did, eventually buy in. And I own Bitcoin and Ethereum. So, I only bought a little bit. I think I bought 3 Bitcoin in 2013. It's the same story for everybody else who learns about it. You never never bought enough, right?
Never bought enough.
Never bought enough.
Or you never held it.
Right, correct. Or I lost my keys in a boating accident. So those are the options. Yeah, so I got into crypto. This was 2016, 2017. I started managing some crypto assets, Ethereum, Bitcoin, a couple other that run on the Ethereum. As you mentioned, these ICOs were very popular at this time. And I was managing that for myself, my personal account, then my family, then some family and friends. And that's when I really got into the understanding how trading them works, how custody works of the assets. And it really blew my mind that we were using infrastructure that was established based on laws written in the 1920s to custody assets that are global and self-custody, have the ability for self-custody.
3 or 5 years ago, I didn't know what most of these terms meant. Like, what is custody? Most human beings are just like, what are you talking about? You put your money in the bank. No one even knows that the bank is custodying your money.
Custody just means who the hell has it.
Right. And who's responsible for it if it gets lost. And then there's all these rules. Sometimes, right? There's rules.
Ownership is not the same as custody.
Okay, go. Share some of this.
So, yeah, if I own a stock, I mean, the most relatable, I think, to people is stocks because it's a little bit intangible while also valuable.
And fungible, which means like you don't know what stock you own. You just know you own Tesla stock. Oh, I don't know if it's the 3,000th one.
Each share is the same. You can trade the 1,000th share for the 10,000th share and they're equal. Okay, one share is one share. And so, yeah, if you're an owner of a Tesla share, you definitely don't custody it. You don't have the share under your mattress. So the share is,
who has it?
The share is custodied. Well, all shares are ultimately custodied by the DTCC, but that's just a central government authority. Then you have a brokerage, E-Trade, Schwab, Bank of America, whatever it is.
And they're custodying it.
In a sense, they're the custodian. They custody the asset.
So if you don't have it, do you really own it? And isn't that the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, that Bitcoin allows you to custody your assets that you own in your home, in your office, or in your wherever you may choose to keep the private keys.
So you were getting interested in all this and you were learning about custody
very much
on a financial level.
Yeah, I mean, I had some background, as I mentioned, coming from the real estate world, understanding there's different types of investors in the real estate world. There's accredited investors that you can go to raise money. There's qualified investors, which are even higher.
What's the difference?
Qualified's over 10 million. Accredited is just individuals or entities that make more than
there's all the rules, right? It's either how much money you make or how much money you have in the bank.
So correct. And then it was, once you raise money from one of these groups, then the money has to be custodied somewhere, or it has, assets have to be custodied by us. In real estate, it's a physical asset. So it's custodied in a sense by the management team, but it's a little bit different than intangible assets like a stock. Which then I was learning lots about custody because I was really understanding. I didn't know about the DTCC when I was doing this. I didn't know about
what does that even stand for?
It's a centralized organization that holds all of the actual certificates
for stocks for companies.
Yeah, depository trading corporation. It's
interesting.
It's a centralized ledger.
So at that point, would you consider yourself a entrepreneur? Were you working with your family? Were you working for someone? What was that? So
I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always felt, kind of been working on my own path. And I was really getting to understand the intricacies of running a business and being a fiduciary, managing assets for other people. And then while learning about all of this, we developed our own system for trading crypto assets that allowed you to keep your possession.
Now, why did you do that? Were you like, was it very hard in other places?
I guess there's really, like you said, it's solving a problem. As an entrepreneur at heart, I'm very much an entrepreneur at heart. And I wanted to solve this problem because it was a problem worth solving, and it was a pain that I was feeling. And
okay, I like that. Yeah.
And so
but you're a real estate guy at that point. It's kind of feels like a big jump. That's all. I want to say that's awesome. Like to get into the technical side of crypto, people that's why most people don't do it, is because it's very clunky early. You were early adopter in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities between real estate and Bitcoin. I mean, I think that's why there's a lot of overlap. You'll see a lot of investors who come from that world of real estate who are interested in Bitcoin. You'll hear Bitcoiners talk about how Bitcoin is the hardest asset. Well, it's hard to explain that to someone who doesn't understand digital assets and doesn't understand technology.
And is thinking brick and mortar and thinking walking into a home where you touch a door.
House is the hardest asset,
handle. Exactly,
right? Yeah. It also has the most utility. I can live in it.
Right. Or rent it to someone.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that is a draw for people who have been investing in real estate and want hard assets, defensible assets, deflationary assets, or assets that are defensive to inflation.
Right.
Real estate's been that asset for the past 30 to 50 years.
So I like this though. So you're connecting the two, and I keep pushing on that, and you keep connecting them as similar. So you go and you start thinking about creating it to make it easy for people to buy it.
Correct. I think that it really along these lines, you know, I was reading so much about Bitcoin when I was getting into this and why Bitcoin is the best. There, you know, Saylor's famous line, there is no second best. Right.
Right.
And
that's maximalist.
Right.
That's religion, bro. You're speaking religion, right?
But Bitcoin is partially religion.
Right.
So are all memes. So are all stocks.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all it's all partially a belief system. So is money.
Right.
Money is a belief system. So yeah, I mean, while Bitcoiners are saying that it's the hardest money and that there's no second best, I was looking at what Ethereum was doing, and most people trading Ethereum and Bitcoin and all these other crypto assets at the time, a lot of Litecoin, Zcash, you know, these other things that were very popular.
Gosh, Zcash, yes.
Those were all traded on centralized exchanges. They still are. They still are in a sense. I mean, there's a majority of the assets
which
being traded.
Breaks the logic. It's like,
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm reading so much about how it's a hard asset. You can self custody, yet a lot of the commerce, a lot of the activity is still being done on rails developed based on 1920s laws and custody laws. And
the example would be like, if you're doing crypto and you're supposed to own those items, you're supposed to have less intermediaries between taking money or holding the money. And so you're not really doing the thing that you're trying to do. You're getting access to the thing, but you're not actually doing the revolutionary thing. So you wanted to do the revolutionary thing.
I wanted to be principled in my and actually apply the technology and the benefits of blockchain technology to trading digital assets or any type of asset that people wanted to trade.
So did you put your own money into like building this business? Did you?
Yeah. So Total was started 2017. We, I put in some seed money for some friends and family. My father was our biggest supporter, has always been our biggest supporter. So I really appreciate him for that.
But I'm imagining even before that, you qualified it by working your butt off, probably way more hours than you wanted to before you even started the business, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a grind that I think I want to zoom in on that like takes insane grit and emotional resiliency and speaking to your wife or your friends and not going out and partying. Like, was there a layer of that for like a year to get to that spot?
There's a lot of sleepless nights of being an entrepreneur. You know the drill. But again, going back to the principle of this was a pain that I was feeling and it was a problem worth solving, I wanted to dig deep on it. I also knew there was a financial opportunity, right?
Yep.
And I wanted to better my family and myself. So I became an expert on what is called decentralized exchanges. And that's what Vitalik was writing about in 2016. He still writes about them, by the way.
So you went to a college and you took a course called decentralized
No, I actually
exchanges?
I did all of this on self-taught, all on my own, just reading papers and information online. I'm a big believer, by the way, for entrepreneurs doing that. I mean, as you know better than anybody, there's education online and it's available. And you just have to do the work.
Yeah, the learning is not about where to get the learning; it's about the learner.
Correct. I mean,
it's like if you want to learn, you can.
There are free Harvard courses. There are free courses everywhere online. So yeah,
some people feel they need the accountability to pay someone else and go in debt, and that's fine.
It's like paying,
yeah. And sometimes you need to do that. Like you have to do that as a lawyer and a doctor. But a lot of this stuff, the reason I asked the question is paying like accountability. That does not sound exciting. It sounds painful. reading white papers. I've read them. I've written them. They're painful.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just white papers. White papers can be informative, but it's a lot. I like reading opinion, and I like understanding the opportunities in businesses based on
true use and application.
Yeah, what is out there and what people are working on, and where the white spaces maybe in the industry.
So how do you even go about this though? So you start this company, it's an LLC or whatever it is, a C Corp. Then you have to get it incorporated. Then you have to hire lawyers. Then you took an investment. So you had to like get legal documents for investment. This is a lot of.
Yeah, we're pretty problem focused. And I think, we can jump a little bit here, even to DGB, what we're working on now to fast forward after all of this. We run a studio model where we start companies every single day. And
what is DGB?
DGB is Draper Gorin Blockchain. It's founded by myself, Alon Gorin, and Tim Draper. We're
some legends.
We're venture investors that are focused in the blockchain and software and automation. And we like to be the first check-in to entrepreneurs and their new companies, or we like to start companies ourselves with impactful, groundbreaking entrepreneurs that are looking to change the world. And it's an exciting organization, and we're working on some really cool ventures right now that I think are really promising too.
Can you talk about some of them? Or
yeah, I mean, we're working on some prop tech. We're looking to automate some of the back office without getting into specifics. We're looking to automate some of the back office tasks that maybe take.
So this is going back to all my micro questions. It's like, you've learned this process, and it's a very grindy process that I think most new or even entrepreneurs who have done it, there's a way to get there quicker. And you've systematized this where you're making early investments in people and companies, and then you're helping them get there quicker. And that is what a studio is.
Yep.
A studio doesn't just write the check, which a lot of investors, sometimes they write it and it's like, good luck. You're hands-on with these individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking back, you're asking really pointed questions that are really good. Like looking back, I didn't really know what I was doing that much with Total. And I learned along the way.
Yeah, and it's painful.
You make mistakes.
And which one's more important than the other? And how do you work concurrently on these workflows to get progress?
You learn from the biggest mistakes. You learn from, you don't really learn from making the right decision.
I always say, like, you're starting at -45 or -450, and you're just trying to get to zero.
Yes.
You're not even at 0 to 1 yet.
A different way to a friend of mine, I said, you have to expect bad luck. So just just expect for the next, whatever you're working on this 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, you're going to have bad luck during that time.
Yeah.
So how can you operate assuming bad luck? That's how
can you operate assuming bad luck? Yeah. If you're just an optimist, you're going to have you have to be a little bit of a pessimist. You have to be a little bit of a realist.
Yeah. Realist is
more,
more,
I think realist
is a great term, because you have to be an optimist, but expect bad luck.
Expect bad luck. I like that. So what's some of the unexpected bad luck that you had no idea they were in? Because you went you got to finish some of the stuff in Tolte, which is this company you created. Total. This decentralized exchange, but then you went DGB. But like, what's some of the bad luck in either one of the companies? They just like never saw that coming. That didn't help.
Well, I mean, we went through a major crash in the price action. That I don't know if it was like completely unexpected. Nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going, but we had a major washout from the ICO, the 2017 craze of crypto. You have people that come into your business and they present themselves in one way for 90 days, and you do work with them, and then they don't act appropriately, and maybe they are just looking to get the most out of you and the most money out of the situation.
Very hard to make those assessments ongoing all the time.
People get greedy.
It's even harder when you have social layers that kind of get created to where people start to like other people, and they're not realizing that we're all actually here for the outcome. What is the outcome that we agreed upon? As much as I like you, I'm actually agreeing on this item. When you work with people, it's tough, because then if this person goes away, how does this person see the thing that we were working on? Did they buy it? So these are hard layers.
Very
these
much
are some
so.
disappointments you went through. You had some team members that it didn't
team
go the way you
members
wanted it to go.
Who acted in their own best interest and not in the interest of the organization.
And then what did you do? You like,
well, those are constant battles. And in those situations, you just have to make sure that you are looking out for yourself and that you are looking out for the organization, number one. And
I always say the organization is it's like a child, and I'm not a person who's birthed anyone. So I'm not saying but I would imagine that when I've built these companies and you've built them, it's like a child. The child doesn't care what your needs are.
It's really interesting.
If it wants to drink milk at 2 a.m, it's going to blow your freaking crap up, dude.
Recently having a child. Yes. I didn't birth any children myself, but, I have an 18-month-old, and I can understand that it's at a very early stage. Your company is like a child.
Yeah.
It has needs, and it doesn't care how tired you are or what your opinion is.
And you have to actually put the child's needs often above yours. And you have to, and you even were saying stuff like 90 days. It sounds like you've created now mental programming in your brain of when to check in or assess things happening in your organization.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
zoom in on one situation without sharing names? Do you feel comfortable with sharing a situation where you basically had to lay off someone?
Oh, I mean,
which
yeah.
sucks.
I mean, there's
it never feels great
there's
doing.
several situations. I mean, I've had a situation where I've had an awesome teammate, awesome coworker, in product work with us and transformed our company from an early stage when we were working on Total to something that was a product that was accessible to consumers and did a terrific job. And then they went and work on their own, and they wanted to work on their own company and their own growth. And this is not someone I had to lay off and someone I'm still close friends with, but
those are hard moments still. It's
very
emotional.
Difficult.
It's freaking emotional.
You're looking out for your own company, and you want the success for your company, but you also have to realize that people are not machines, and people grow into their own story and their own success, and you have to support them through that.
I always say it's all permission based.
Correct.
At the end of the day,
I think it's all in communication too. I mean, communication is extremely key especially in the early stages. I mean, in every stage of a company, but in the super early stages, it's so messy that
how transparent are you?
You have to over communicate
with that messy information to every person on the team.
When I work on companies at the beginning stages, I like to be as transparent. I believe in ultimate transparency. I had a guy when I was working at Coinbase, there was a guy who came in and gave us a talk about the military and he was obviously working as a general, or he talked about how transparency from one division to the other in the military allowed for this tremendous boom of productivity and the ability to conquer their enemy in the Middle East specifically.
That's hardcore.
And how
if you don't have every data point.
Well, it was more about how that's true. How more data helped each group, but it was more about how in the Middle East the opposition was using WhatsApp and was using these things that startups were using. And that's how they communicated. It was using channels like Slack, Discord, or Signal or whatnot. But they were transparent from every level, from the top all the way to the bottom, because they were all in these group chats.
Crazy.
And they were gaining on, and they were defeating the US.
I'm a big believer in this in company. Like, I had an interview with a guy who said, "Don't hide anything from your staff. Don't surprise anyone. Just the more information you can give, the better."
The transparency adds productivity. It's multiplicative.
The transparency adds productivity.
Correct.
So true. I like it. Can you give me an example too of when that plays out really strong in a functional, because that a hard one would be like with investors. Or I think this is a place where I think business owners or creators, if they have an investor or a co-founder, maybe they're not always as transparent. And I think that is a great space for that.
It really is interesting. It's not natural for everyone to be transparent. It's natural for some, and it's not natural for others. And just like anything else, I mean, you have introverts, you have extroverts, you have all types of different dichotomies. And for some people, it's supernatural. And for those that it's not natural for, it just takes a small change in perspective for them to understand why. But yes, I would agree with you. It can be difficult for a lot of times executives, a lot of times investors to understand the
people
real
have come from the corporate world where
to really
it's
understand
actually
the
important
benefit.
to actually hedge yourself with not sharing everything you know or not sharing everything you feel, because any attention is not always good attention, right? I like that. Executives is in corporate world is definitely a different beast.
Yeah. And I guess, I've worked through both, and you see back to my story a little bit. We started Total throughout that process of trying to bring decentralized exchanges to mass consumers,
which is bringing radical transparency about what true ownership means. So it's pretty cool. Even in the product, it pulls
through.
We
were trying to bring self-custody and trading to being more accessible to everybody.
I think that entrepreneurism is not about owning a business and having a business. It's about being committed to the story of your life and trying to actually anchor future stories. A lot of people want to be the guy or be the girl, be the person, be the star. But you learn it's actually about serving the people around you and getting people together to do the next thing. So with DGB, my question to you is like, when you are coming alongside people who are hyper emotional or immature young founders, there's founder dilemmas where they're just, we need more product feature. How do you help the values in people shift to a mindset that accelerates future possible potential? Because most people fail, dude, right?
Yeah,
your likelihood of failing is there.
It's always amazing how much is perspective, how much is, the small change in perspective, how much you can advance your own productivity and other people's efficiency and productivity. I think that people get in their own way with some of these perspectives that they have on how.
So how do you call that out, or how do you ding that? How do you bop them? How do you, whatever the word is, like, how do you lead them?
For me, it's being real. I like to talk with other people on their level. You have to meet people where they are. You have to understand what it is that how do they communicate? If you are trying to improve your communication and you sit in a room and you say, I'm just going to improve my communication, you never will. Because improving communication is meeting someone with their language. If they speak Japanese and you're sitting in a room saying, I'm going to make my English perfect, you're never going to talk to them.
That's something I have noticed about you too. You have a great boldness to like disagree with people. You're not afraid to do it in a inviting, collaborative way. Like, I actually disagree with that. Well,
there's no progress without friction, right? There's no, disagreements can be a good thing. Tell that to my wife, by the way. She's very.
But there's something about that, because I always love, like, I've always worked with people that I want the friction. As long as they're doing it with the right approach, I've learned that if someone pushes back on you and you fall back, then you were not staying on the right foundation. But if you're you now are getting a deeper conviction. I'm like, well, no, you are wrong. Let me help. Let me invite 100%. You to that. I'm going to grade up even more, because I want to win you over to my idea. And I think that your idea is from a perspective that's more limited. If we're talking about velocity, speed, outcome, like that is something that you do, I think, even just in that opinion driving.
Yeah, I think that meeting people where they are, understanding how they're communicating and communicating to them in their language and getting your point across is so much more effective by trying to understand what it is that someone's dealing with and what it is that they're struggling with, and helping them. We're all struggling, right? We're all suffering. We're all trying to better ourselves, better our families. And so if you can understand what someone is dealing with and what their struggle is, it's so much easier.
How do you do that? How do you do that when someone's like,
I think you have to listen
financially
to them.
Struggling, when someone's stressed, when someone's ego's in the way and their opinion is.
You really got to listen to them. You really got to understand and hear what it is that they are working on and what it is in their mind they believe to be the biggest hurdle. Because in reality, again, if it's a change of perspective, that biggest hurdle may not be the biggest issue or the biggest problem.
Do you guide them with questions? Just listening sometimes can be painfully inefficient.
Yes.
Right.
I think you have to ask the right questions in addition to listening. So it's not just listening. It's asking them, well, if this happened, how would you feel? Or if, this is really where you should be focusing your time. How do you feel about this subject? Or how are you going to overcome this obstacle. There's ways you can hear people's true feelings by asking the right questions.
And then it's tough if you do this cycle a few times and people aren't able to get there. You have to increase. Everyone needs to be talked to and managed differently. The way I talk to Everly is not the way I can talk to Danny or Ivy, my kids. They're actually very unique. And it's the same with employees and staff members and team members and visionaries and investors and everything. Have you ever heard this term like suspend belief?
I haven't heard that term.
Have you ever heard of there's like a saying out there that's like, I don't know if I'm going to hit it exactly right, but it's amazing what you can accomplish if you can talk about an idea but not believe it. Like the most powerful people to me are people who can argue or talk about a thing but not necessarily know if they believe their own thoughts.
Interesting.
And suspending belief is like, look, I believe this, but I'm not here to try to prove my belief. I'm here to try to get this outcome that's tied. Like beliefs come behind outcomes and ideas. Belief is faith, right? So if you can suspend belief, that's a lot of what you're talking about. You're trying to help people suspend their beliefs. And they're tied to this like, oh, I need this water. And you're like, you need that water?
Correct. Okay, now I'm understanding a lot better
what
you're saying.
It's amazing what you can do when a lot of times when you're having conversations, it's trying to go from arguments or immovable objects and people being the wall, being the rock, to can we just argue about this and not care about who's right?
Absolutely. I think people's anxiety drives a lot of their, people's fear. It drives so much of their ability to get stuck in a certain situation. And really, it's giving up that need for whatever that desire is that you're talking about.
Being right.
Or
being wrong or not being wrong or whatever commitment you've made.
Or doing things your way versus doing things somebody else's way.
Yeah. When you start companies, you have to have a lot of people collaborating on something. So I want to zoom in on like what's, there's individuals that are going to listen that have a college degree. They've spent time and energy. They've told their story to their family and their friends. I'm going to be a communications degree, or I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be a marketer. And then ChatGPT comes out for writers. It's like, what's the word that you would share with someone who wants to get into something? They're working a day job, a dead end job, a job they hate, whatever the answer is for them, right? They want to jump ship, but what do they jump ship to? Like, how do they redefine themselves?
Interesting. Bruce Lee used to say, be like water.
I love watching that guy say that. It's actually like watching him say it.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's like, you're like, he's channeling something.
He gets it so well. Yeah. It's seriously, it's like, you have to be, it's in so many ways you can talk about be like water in that you have to be fluid. I mean, that's a huge thing. I think a lot of people get corporate structure and then they get stuck in corporate structure and they want to solve everything in business, in corporate structure,
or
solutions.
Family structure,
or family structure.
Yeah.
But in business specifically, they want to bring corporate processes, or they want to solve all of the problems by fitting everything into the spreadsheet, and it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah,
most of the time it doesn't, especially at the earliest stages of companies.
So early stage of someone launching something, how much fluidity? How much flow like water, how much creativity, vision, that's that bucket, versus how much structure?
Well, it's not just creativity and vision, because I think that's when you say that, which I appreciate based on what I described to you, it's also being, when you be water, you find your way into every crack. Mm-hmm. So you said what to focus on. You said if someone's running this job and they're like, now I need to figure out what to do to be an entrepreneur. You need to be like water in the sense that you need to find the problem that you can solve better than anybody else. That may be because you're a good artist, so you can be the best designer. Maybe it's you are, a licensed carpenter. Maybe you can you can build some small toys or tools. Somebody else who's not a carpenter can't do that. Maybe you have, a different trade. I don't know. Maybe you're good with computers. Maybe you can be an engineer.
For someone who wants to launch a thing, you're saying go to what's natural, but it's hard to build a product. Like, how do people make these choices when there's all these financial constraints in their life? Like, Do they go the physical product route? You talked about digital being something you really love versus the digital product.
So interesting.
How do you sell? How do you?
There's that dichotomy, and you hear Mark Cuban talk about this all the time. He says, "Don't do what you love. That's stupid. If you do what you love, you'd be broke all the time." And other people on the other side of the dichotomy say, "Do what you love. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life."
Right.
And so it's the two, right? So what I think about is go do what you love. So it should be obvious. So if you're an artist, it's something in art, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to do the hard things, and that's not doing what you love.
Right.
So finding what you should do and where you should go is natural and organic. I love football. I'm gonna get into football. You know it's in football, and you know that there's problems with football. There's being an agent, helping people manage their money. There's being a coach. There's a trainer. There's all sorts of things that
there's
are
the fantasy side, which is bringing
what
other people
problems are all
into
those
it.
people solving. There's a fantasy side for entertainment, and so that is I really want to be in this industry. Do that, but then you have to do the hard things, which is the things you don't want to do, which is figuring out
what is the product and the service. What is the price point?
You also, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you have to do all the things that you are not when the company is large. So you have to be the market. You have to be the CMO. Maybe you're not organically or naturally the best marketing person. Right, exactly. There's nothing that's not my job.
I don't know how to do that.
No.
I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
That's what I mean. When you say pretty much every day, it's I don't know how to do that. You talked about how a company is a child when it's starting out. It's interesting because I hear a lot of these analogies. And now you're talking about, getting married to your partner. Later in the company's cycle, I find it much more appropriate to compare a company to a team, a sports team. I think Alexis Ohanian was talking about us on his own podcast too.
I like this.
You hear a lot about family, but a company isn't a family.
No, I agree with this
because
like we said, there's a stage shift. There's a stage shift. There's an analog, but the behavioral stuff is better analog to a team.
You can't fire your family.
No,
you can't. You can trade a teammate. Teammates come and go to teams. They leave teams. But while you're on the same team, you have to work together and row the boat together. And
I actually also do believe there's great analogs what we're saying, but my favorite one is the team because it's like, look, we're coming together as a team. You're not going to get judged on one game you play. You're not going to get fired for one game.
Right.
But in 4 games, if you're not showing up, you're like someone else is. And this is the hardest part. Sheet.
How many goals? How many blocks did you have? How many?
And I always tell all my team members, if I'm not doing my job, go to the board, tell them, and take the money you're paying me and go pay someone else. To think you're not disposable in a team is insane. There's 7 billion people on the planet. We're here to win. I want to win. If we win,
Absolutely.
We win big. And
Absolutely.
Team is the best one, though, because anyone on the team can call anyone out. A team is just like...
Sports teams are like businesses. And that's why it's such a great analogy. A lot of this stuff goes hand in hand. I don't think the analogy falls apart pretty much anywhere. It does with a family.
It does very, very,
very quickly with a family. A family, there's unconditional love.
The analog, though, is that if you are finding a co-founder, you are getting married, and it's like a divorce if you have to remove that person or they have to remove you, right? But the fact
as much as it is getting rid of your quarterback.
As much as getting, if you put it in that category, I like it that way.
Right? I mean, if you get rid of your quarterback, that's a divorce.
Yeah, but I think too, though, in a team setting, if you still reflect the team nature on that, if you're hiring and you're working with the right team, they're going to want to leave just as much as you're going to want them to leave. Like, it's about winning. That's why I do love working with people who want to win together. That is the biggest piece. Well, dude, this was an awesome chat and dialogue. I feel like we could keep flowing.
I feel like we could sit here for hours.
I know.
We could just sit here all
so
day
many
and talk
more questions, dude.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, this was awesome.
Thank you for setting it all
coming
up.
On Wavelength. This is going to be awesome, bro. And for everyone watching, check out some of what David's doing. Check out DGB. There is a website, I believe. If you are a founder who wants to pitch your idea, I believe there's probably a contact form, or even if there isn't, struggle to find a way to figure out how to get to that spot. And David, any other leaving comments for anyone watching? Any provocations, questions?
No, I thought it was an excellent conversation. Thank you so much for having me. And if you're an entrepreneur looking to start a company or have an idea in the software blockchain space, you can reach me at david@dgb.vc.
Awesome. See you on the next Wavelength podcast.